So here are some shots of the garden as I promised you. This is the front of our house. And I just want to show you this border. We call it the lime border. We used to have a large lime tree here which got diseased and had to be cut down. So rather than fence this part off, we decided to make a roadside border for passers-by to enjoy. And it's a mixture of spring bulbs, shrubs, roses, and we add some colour with bedding in the summer. And yes, you can in fact see a clematis. We have a caravan, and I erected this fence for the caravan to stay behind so that we can't see it. And I've built a window box that's a bottomless one at the front, and I'm growing 12 months worth of clematis. Down the far end there are some verticellas, late large flowering, early large flowering clematis. And at this end we've got early ones. I'm not sure I've planted this the right way round really, but we'll see what it's like in a year's time. It's only been here for a few months. And here we have pink flamingo, which is just coming out next to Frankie. Brunette, Broughton Bride, Ruby Celebration, and Diamond Anniversary. And then we go down to the other ones, which I'll show you later in the year when they've put on more growth and some flower. Ours is a fairly typical front garden, a border around the side. It's mixed with shrubs, some roses, and of course there are clematis in there. There's some late flowering ones on the dividing fence, a lovely ceratifolia, and into the hawthorn hedge at the front there are a couple of montanas which get pruned at the same time as the hedge does in June, which gives them lots of time to come back for next year. And isn't that a fantastic magnolia? And as you come round the side of the house into the back garden, we have a trellis that we've put up here just to provide some definition to the end of the long border. And at the moment we have 3 or 4 clematis waiting to come into flower. One of them has just come into flower, and we'll go around and have a look at this one. This is Albina plena. Which is the year I've grown this. It's rather nice. It's more cream than white, but I'm not going to complain. Looking down the long border, we copied this from Arley Hall in Cheshire, which I think has one of the loveliest long borders in the country. It's all overgrown at the moment because it needs cutting down, weeding and feeding, but I'll take you down to the bottom in a minute. And here we have a shot across the back garden. When we had our extension built 2 years ago, we decided to have the windows go as far down to the floor as possible so that we actually bring the garden inside, and that's worked really well. We took out a couple of island beds that had been near to the house just to provide more of a view, pushing the borders back a bit further from the house and giving us a different kind of vista. The border that you're looking at here is one that I started making last year. It's a combination of English roses and clematis, and hopefully it will do really well this year. There are about 18 roses in there, room for a few more, but for the time being that will do. Now along the back of the house, this is a spring border that we've created, and again that's a lovely magnolia. That's a stellata, Wesselton in its pot doing its thing. And we have a raised pond here. It's fenced off so that we can keep very young children away, but we can see the fish from inside the house. And the waterfall here is well used by blackbirds, robins, all sorts of bathers that we have in the garden. This gives you a different sweep of the garden. Again, the long border. I've started clearing the bottom part of it, and I'll take you down there now. This is a new archway that we've put in because the wooden one went very rickety this winter, so we're trying a smaller metal one. It's just got a couple of roses growing up at the moment, but no doubt I shall think of other things to grow up there. At the end of the pavilion here, this is Madewell Hall. I think it's a particularly nice Macropatella. Christopher Lloyd, in his book on Clematis, claims that he can't tell the difference between the species Macropatella and Madewell Hall, and I think very few people can. We also have another Clematis here. I think it's Blue Dancer, but I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't have a label on. And this is Bill Mackenzie that I cut down yesterday. And as you see, I have a lot of work to do in the border. This is the view looking up through the colonnade towards the house. The border on the left is mainly shrubs, but there are some Clematis on the fence. And this is Willie that's just coming out and trying desperately to strangle this rhododendron that it's using as a host. I probably need to prune Willie back a bit after he's finished flowering, just because he's occupying more space than I want him to. Here we have Prince Charles. He needs pruning back, but he's with Guernsey cream, so I'll have to be very careful how I do that. Now this is a newer border. So many new borders in the garden at the moment. This is made out of builder's mesh that they use for concrete, set between posts, and we've planted 3 climbing roses here and Clematis to grow through them. That will provide hopefully a really nice colourful barrier come June and July. This Acer at the end of the border is lovely when it comes out as well. Looking down towards the pavilion, like everybody at the moment, the household tips are closed, so I'm having to find places to store things that otherwise I would dispose of. So that's the garden part. I'll now show you the business end of things. So through the gap between this trellis. First we have a small woodland garden, which consists of primroses, dogtooth violets, hellebores, pieris, and a couple of acers. This is a honeysuckle here, and on the fence we've got a couple of Clematis that will be out later on. And this is the seeds and cuttings greenhouse. looking all very healthy. This gets quite a bit of shade, and it's sited here quite deliberately because I don't want the young seeds and cuttings getting burnt by the sun, so it does provide some shading for it. They all look pretty healthy. These have been cut down and fed, and it's a matter of constantly pruning them because I want the roots to develop rather than the top growth at this stage. Once plants get too big for in here, I put them in a second greenhouse to overwinter, really, for their first real winter, because some of them I think are still quite tender at that stage. Not all of these have been pruned yet. One of my jobs to be done this week. And outside, the majority of the clematis that are either grown in pots or are being grown on to take to shows and gardening clubs. At this end, we've got quite a few early flowering ones, one or two montanas, shed, greenhouse, compost heaps, the sort of thing you would normally expect to find. And this row here is a row of herbaceous clematis. These are ones you cut down to ground level. There's a raised bed here which at the moment is just being used for spare perennials, but that will be cleared and will be planted out with vegetables. This row we've got some late large flowering clematis, including Jean Cumston that I've put there. She's not a late flowering clematis, she's a winter clematis, but she hasn't flowered this year. I'll prune her and see what happens next year. In this row there's a row of corianas that have been grown from seed, and this is the first time they've produced flower, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're like. Some may be quite interesting, others may be quite boring. You don't know till you let the seeds flower. That's the exciting thing about growing them. You don't know what you've got. Here's another atrogene that's going to come into flower. One of them's diamond anniversary, I think. This is amber. Quite a mixture here. And again, all in need of being sorted. This is the larger greenhouse, a general greenhouse used for seeds, for bedding. We've got some begonia coming on in there. Compost bins, spare canes, and a shed. So that's the business end of things. That Armandii is lovely, isn't it? It's apple blossom, and it grows right along that fence. So there you are, you have a context.